Welcome back to this week's episode of Success Through Connections, and I'm your host, Zelda. And don't forget, you've got to subscribe and share this video with everybody. So, I have a really cool guest today, somebody who I manifested, and he's here today. So, I have to tell you a little bit about Randy Gage and how I actually met him over 20 years ago. So, I used to drive from Jacksonville, Florida to Fort Lauderdale, and they would have the Florida Speakers Association meetings, and I met some pretty awesome Joachim. I can't pronounce his name, he's deceased now, but you know who I'm talking about, Joachim?
Joaquin de
Yeah,
Posada.
Joaquin. He actually
Yes.
endorsed my book. I mean, I met so many awesome people, and I met Randy there because he was a phenomenon then, he's still a phenomenon, and he was the guru back then. Like I said, he's still the guru, and that's how I actually met Randy, and I was just so inspired by him that I just knew that one day something good was gonna happen. And then when I started this podcast, I had a whole list of people who I wanted to have on the podcast, and Randy was on that very first list, and when I mentioned it to one of our mutual friends, he said, "I know Randy," and so there you go. I've known of Randy for a very long time, but so thank you, Randy, for being here today,
That's
and
very cool. You were driving from Jacksonville to Fort Lauderdale to attend those meetings to hone your craft. That shows real dedication.
I did, and then I got into real estate. So
Good for
I
you.
didn't really stick with it, but that's okay. That's another story for another time. It was when yeah, that was not a good time for me to be getting into speaking, but we're going to talk today about what it really takes to transform your life from just surviving to thriving. Randy is a master at manifesting and prosperity, and he's not just a speaker. He like I said, he's a phenomenon, and I'm super excited that he's here. I believe you're the actual definition of a self-made success story. You're not it's not glossy, it's you had came from a very troubled I've watched many of your videos. You came from a very troubled childhood. You were in prison, and now look where you are now. You are a global speaker, a best-selling author, a millionaire many times over. And what I love about you, Randy, is that you have such razor sharp insights. You don't sugarcoat the truth. It's your truths. And I go, you're one of the smartest people that I read because you really have people, you send out it's not weekly. I thought it was weekly, but I'm on your list. Randy sends out a newsletter or a blog that's called Randy's Rants, and he just lets it rip. He just says what's on his mind. It's unfiltered and it's really deep thinking. It really causes you to stop and think about what he's saying. And he talks about questioning assumptions and actually, when you're manifesting things, you have to actually do some work. You can't just sit on the couch. I watched this video, what he said. You can't just sit on the couch and like, what is it, the thing?
Watch this.
The secret. It's like you sit there and I want to get wealthy. No, you actually have to do some work. You have to do that. And so he talks about creating wealth and manifesting success and transforming your mindset into action. You're going to love our conversation. We're going to ask him some of these questions because I just think your insights are just so deep and they really cause me to think. You've talked about one that I spoke with Bob Berg the other day. We talked about how you leverage connections because they're going to be leveraging you. So I just love all the stuff that you talk about. So, first of all, thank you for being here today. I can check you off my bucket list.
Well, I'm humbled and honored.
I'm so glad. So, one of the first things I wanted to ask you before we get into some of the things I'm just dying to ask is from your background, now you've become, and for over some odd years, because I met you 20 some odd years ago. How did you get into speaking? And how did the topic of manifesting enter the picture for you?
Yeah, that was a kind of circuitous journey. I never set out to be a speaker because I didn't know such a profession existed where the space I grew up in, we were not going to seminars or hearing motivational speakers. That was not my universe, right? I got into network marketing at a young age, like at 20, and that required you to train your team, teach them skills. So I said, and the first rank, the company I was working had their first rank was supervisor. So I said, I'm going to have a supervisor school once a month on how you can be a supervisor. And so I rented a room at the Marriott, and I was just up there wearing my jeans and sneakers and drawing on a chalkboard and whiteboard, whatever, and training. And then some people from some other lines said, "Hey, we heard about this school you teach. Can we come?" I was like, "Well, yeah, bring $5 to help cover the meeting room and the donuts, and you can come." And then people were like, "Hey, if we wanted you to go to Chicago and work with our team there, and we bought your airfare, what would you charge to do that?" And so I got in the seminar business because I left that company and then I thought, well, I don't need to just train people from that company. I could train anyone in direct selling or network marketing. I could show them how they can learn their skills they need to be successful. And so I became a quote unquote professional speaker. And I guess 96 is when I wrote my first book. And then I kind of branched more into success and prosperity, more stuff for entrepreneurs in general. And I had a couple of big bestsellers, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, they hit with some impact. And then everybody wanted to hear a keynote from the author of either of those books, right? So that kind of anchored my space in that profession of professional speakers.
Interesting. Yeah. They always say for speakers to have a book adds the credibility. You had the book and got asked to
Yeah,
speak.
I mean, that's the advice you hear all the time for speaker coaches. It's usually terrible advice because most people write books that are it's too early in their career. They haven't really developed their intellectual property. They haven't really got their philosophy or their systems. And they think, well, as soon as if I get a book and I put on a suit and I cross my arms and put my picture on the cover and I look like a business titan who was on Forbes magazine cover. And there's so much garbage out there. But if you're and like, I've written 15 books now, and I'll still say the first 7 were garbage. And then, the last few I'm really proud of. And, I think they represent me well. But I matured, I've developed, I learned skills, I gained wisdom, I did research, right? But yeah, I think for anyone, I wish everyone in the world would actually write a book, one book, because I think everybody has that in them. But not everybody in the world should publish their book. Everybody should write a book. And why I say that is because I write to know what I'm thinking. I write to crystallize and clarify my thoughts. It wouldn't matter if nobody in the world ever bought one of my books. The fact that I wrote them was for me because it helped me. Like I can give a speech, right, and standing ovation, and everybody loves it. And then I go up in the hotel room after, I'm like, shit, I promised to tell them the 5 secrets of blah, blah, blah. And I think I only gave them 4. You don't notice that in a
Yeah.
speech. Even the audience doesn't notice it. Some of them, well, the OCD people like me, right? They'll be like, he said there were 5 secrets. I'm checking my notes. You only gave me 4, and they're going to hunt you down for the rest of your life until they get that 5th one. But for most of the time, you can jump the shark and you don't really see it in a talk. When you write it down in a book or a blog post or a white paper or whatever, that's when it'll jump out and it'll force you to clarify your thinking.
It's amazing that you say that. Something you said at the very beginning was how you don't really know. Well, you don't know what you don't know, but it was like I used to think, how are these young people talking about these big topics about selling or customer service. I mean, they look like they just got out of college. How could they be the coaches and the consultants? What do they could they possibly know? It used to bug the heck out of me. I was like, I know more than they know when they're acting like they're the experts. It's like used to bug
Right,
me.
but they had an Instagram account and you didn't.
Yes, they were
And
the accountants.
they know how to post a reel and you don't. So
That's right.
therefore they're the preeminent life coach on the planet and you're chopped liver.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. It used to bug me. So, how do you define prosperity and why do so many people get it wrong?
Yeah, I define it very holistically. Where most people get it wrong is they make one of two mistakes. They're two diametrically opposed views, but they're both bad premises. Bad premise number one is that money solves all your problems. Once you're rich, everything is perfect. So if you make lots of money, you're going to have a prosperous life. That's a bad premise because money will not solve all your problems. Money will solve your money problems. But I always tell people if money can solve all your problems, you don't have any real problems. Okay. Real problems is when you got an aging parent and you're their caregiver.
Yes.
Real problems is when your 5-year-old is in the hospital with leukemia. Real problems are when your marriage is blowing up. Real problems are when you need $3 million before Friday to make the payroll or your company's going to go bankrupt. Okay. Those are real problems, right? And if money can solve every problem, then you don't really have any, right? So the first bad premise is that, money is going to solve everything. And the second bad premise, the opposite of that, are people who think that money isn't important to prosperity. Like there's people, like if you go to a Unity church or a Science of Mind church, there's like a whole subculture of like seminar leaders and authors, and they're kind of gypsies going around doing workshops at places like that, and they're like teaching prosperity workshops. And I don't really have a lot of money, but I have my health and I got wonderful relationships. Okay, well, you're not prosperous. I don't believe. Prosperity is all of those things. It's holistic. Actually, this new book I'm working on, the working title is The Seven Elements of an Abundant Life. And for me, it's like doing work that lights you up,
Yes.
working only with people who share your passion for the work, having wonderful, healthy, functional relationships, operating at high energy and wellness, doing work that matters, like its contribution. You're moving from success to significance.
Mm.
And, one of the other parts of it is just that every day you're working toward becoming the highest possible version of yourself.
Ooh, I love that.
Put that together, to me, that's a prosperous life.
Yeah, that is a prosperous life. I should have been taking notes on that. That was beautiful. It's like that is a prosperous life. That's a healthy one. So, what books have shaped your philosophies? Are there specific authors or books that have helped you in your
Yeah, probably the most impactful book for me, I've always go back to is Atlas Shrugged by Ayn Rand, because even though it's a work of fiction, she introduced me to the concept of living life by a congruent philosophy. And I had never done that up until the time I read, and even for a while after I had read the book 8 times. It took me a while to really develop, hey, what is my value system? What are the principles I live by? What is important? What is the philosophy that would govern my life? So that book was really impactful for me. Then the book called Prosperity by Reverend Charles Fillmore, who was co-founder of the Unity Movement. The Science of Mind by Ernest Holmes, who was founder of the Science of Mind Church. And then on the other end of the spectrum, Christopher Hitchens, who's was like the preeminent atheist in the world. Books by him, Sir Richard Dawkins, those have been really helpful to me because I've done a lot of work questioning my spiritual beliefs and my faith, studying organized religion. And so you get a very spiritual viewpoint with the reverends, and you get a very pragmatic, practical, rational stuff with Hitchens and Dawkins. So those would be really, really were kind of guideposts for me along the way.
And I noticed the theme was very spiritual in those books. They had
Yeah, because
yeah.
there is whether or not you believe in God or not, I think your life is better if you're in tune with your spiritual nature. And I don't think it has to be God. There's spiritual stuff with playing with a kitten and walking on the beach and meditating in a forest. And there's a lot of spirituality around us if we're willing to notice it, seek it out.
Oh, wow, yeah. My sister pointed that out to me this morning. She sent me a little photograph. It's spiritual for me. She says it was a picture of a woman sitting there, a cartoon character with a woman with a cup of coffee, and it was like something about. She said, "This reminds me of you. You're happy when you're sitting there with your cup of coffee and you're just watching the birds in your backyard." It's like, yeah, it's spiritual for me to watch them going and they're feeding
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I
That's a spiritual experience.
yeah, I love it. It's like right before this call, there was a bird sitting on the fence. I went, "Oh, yes." It's like, I hope he goes into that birdhouse. Like,
It's funny. I like to think I have prosperity consciousness, right? Because I like, a couple of my books, I tell the stories of, how I wanted one day to be able to afford Bally loafers, which were $200 a pair at the time. And,
huh?
then I graduated to Prada sneakers and then Testoni shoes that were $1,000 a pair and then $5,000 shoes. And then ended up going to Lobs of London and getting bespoke. They build a model of your foot and you get these
Oh, yeah, yeah.
bespoke shoes, 10 or 15 grand a pair. And so I like to think, okay, I'm big kid with big dreams and big vision or whatever. And then I just get out in the real world. So I went to get some, chairs for my balcony. So I saw a really nice, like a love seat chair combo with a coffee table. And I'm like, beautiful. Give me, that's what I want. Send it over to my place. And he said, okay. And then he asked for my credit card. I gave it to him. And then I go to sign the thing. It was $18,000. I'm like,
What?
is there a mistake here? He's like, oh no, you have very good taste. You picked out the such and such designer collection. And it's like, okay, I was today years old when I learned that you can spend $18,000 on balcony
That's right. On
furniture.
balcony furniture. Yeah.
But I gotta say that $18,000 has paid off so much because for me, being on my balcony
Yeah.
reading, sipping my green tea, being on my balcony doing my thinking time, it's absolutely a spiritual experience.
Yes. I totally get it. It's like when my son and I had dinner the other night and I flipped out when he told me the piece of furniture he bought and the cost of it. I was like, what? For a library. He's a ferocious reader and he likes those books in his hand. He's not into the online reading. And I mean, and he's a millennial. He wants the books. And so he goes, I need some better shelves. And he's worked for it. And I just said, God bless you. You've earned it. If that's what
Mhm.
gives you pleasure, it's your money. You've earned it. You do what you want with it.
Good for him.
Good for him. That's right. Good for you. And that I want to see that balcony furniture. That's a lot of furniture. It's like, that's right. So, what is the number one lie that people tell themselves about money that keeps them broke? I know you talked about that in one of your rants once.
Number one lie that keeps people broke is, well, I don't think they know on a conscious level. The number one false premise that keeps people broke is they believe that money is bad and or rich people are evil. but that's on a subconscious level, right? Because most, and some, not everyone, some people, it's a very conscious level, right? Like I play softball with a guy, he shows up at practice one day and he's got a t-shirt. It says, billionaires shouldn't exist, which was like a Bernie Sanders rally cry. And I'm like, well, that's an interesting shirt, Ian. What billionaires? Yeah, it's disgusting. Billionaires shouldn't exist. I said,
Huh?
so what do we do when as soon as they get to $1 billion, do we kill them? What's the plan here? He's like, no, but nobody should have that much money. So, okay, if somebody starts off poor and works their way up and whatever, and then they become a billionaire. Right before they become a billionaire, we should cap it and then take away everything else they ever make. Is that the plan? Yeah, that's what you got to do, and distribute it to the poor.
Uh,
Okay. So in case like that, there are people it's conscious, but I think for 95, 98% of them, they believe they would like to be wealthy and they're trying to be wealthy, but they're self-sabotaging themselves because they don't know they have that subconscious programming that says rich people are evil. And if you don't stop doing what you're doing right now, you're going to become one of those evil, mean, nasty, rich people that you despise.
Interesting. I always think it's, when I've had different coaches or gurus that have helped me that or they offer a program like it's $20,000 for this 1 month program or whatever the fee is or whatever. And I go, well, that's a little steep for my pocketbook right now. And so that people tell me, and I guess they're just trying to sell me their stuff. It's, well, you shouldn't think about that. Think about where you're going to get. It's like, but I like to know that I can pay for things before I spend my money. And I was like,
Yeah,
I that's
the
so
language,
realistic.
I was in a gallery, and first of all, I love art, but as you can see just here, I do not have a wall anywhere in my house that has a place for another painting. Okay, there's none,
I
unless I want to
understand
start
that. I
putting them on the
understand.
ceiling. I don't have a place. So there was this beautiful, painting I saw down in the design district during the Art Basel, and I'm like, wow, that's, really me. And then and my rule is I don't ever ask the price of things because I think it's very poverty conscious for me
If
to
you
do
have
that,
to ask the price, you can't afford it.
right? Well, and
My
that's true.
philosophy.
So, well, it serves you pretty well. But in this case, I like, I couldn't leave with, I just like, how much
You
is that?
needed that. You had to have it.
It was 4.4 million.
Oh,
So I'm like, well, today was a good day to expand and I'm glad I didn't
that
say
you bought it.
I want it. Here's my card because my card would have been declined. Okay. They didn't have 4.4 million on the credit limit. So, but but I still, because, I'm not a multi-billionaire who can buy whatever he wants or she wants at the drop of a hat. But the language I use for myself is it wouldn't be prudent for me to buy that at this time,
Oh, I love that. With
right? So, like for instance, I'm going to relaunch my Breakthrough You coaching program, very similar to what you just talked about, and the next cohort is going to be January 1st, and that's got 3 levels, and the third level is 10 grand a month. So it's a big decision for people to make, but for the people who come in at that level, money isn't even the
exactly.
consideration, right?
Right.
They've made millions. They are worth many millions. They're joining that program because they've got a $400 million company, but their kids don't talk to them,
Uh,
or they're worth $800 million, but the doctor just told him, if you don't lose 44 more pounds and quit smoking and drinking, we're going to be amputating your right leg from the diabetes. And, or they've just realized, wow, I have reached the unreachable star and I have no passion about this. I have no joy from this. I have all the money I need and it isn't bringing me any joy in my life. And so, or they're just really successful and but they become a workaholic and they're real. And I always say a workaholic is no different than a drugaholic, an alcoholic. They just, the pay is better, but it's still an addiction that doesn't serve you, right?
Absolutely.
So if the, so like for people at this level, I'm helping them on like, hey, how do you, there's a great book called Who, Not How from,
Yes.
yeah, Dan Sullivan and
Yes.
Dr. Benjamin Hardy.
Yeah.
Big believer in their philosophy of that book. And so a lot of time I'm guiding people at that level through those kind of choices. Like, okay, how, like for me, I mean, you met Samuel, you talked about how good he is, right? He's my executive assistant. So when I hired him, I said, Samuel, when I come home from a speech, I need my car filled up with gas and washed. I need a chef to come in the house once a week and prepare all of my healthy foods and have them all stacked up so that all I have to do is pop them in and eat them. And I need all of the housekeeper and this and that, and and allow me to work in my genius, which is writing books, coaching people, doing strategic advisory stuff with my clients, right? The genius zone, right? So that's a lesson that a lot of people need to take to heart, right? Because they would have the instant reaction you did when somebody was talking to you about the 20K a month thing or whatever, like, are you out of your mind? Whereas, you know,
I
I'm
aspire to
fortunate.
one day be in that league where I can say, "Oh, sure, no problem."
Well, and at some point, I think no one gets in that league without taking the leap of faith.
Yeah.
Some point, like when I was starting as a speaker, I took this big leap of faith and I printed this 4-color magazine
Mhm.
which is a product catalog of all my albums. Some people watch are gonna have to Google this, like your son, but there were these things called DVDs and cassettes, and so
Yeah.
I had all these albums, right? So I had like a whole library of learning resources and
Yes.
courses and everything, and so I spent a fortune to print a glossy 4-color thing. That was a leap of faith, money that I didn't have that I put
Yep.
on credit, right?
Yep.
But it exploded into millions of dollars eventually in sales. It was a big leap of faith to me when I did my first professional demo video as a speaker. It's a leap of faith when I launch a company or invest in a company, whatever. And I do believe there are some, again, prudent. No one should be taking their kids' college fund and
Right.
putting it on blackjack in Vegas or whatever. But I do believe for people to really break through, they will. If you're really going to break the bonds of mediocrity, the universe will send you a choice one day and say, okay, here is a leap of faith. Are you willing to take this daring, death defying leap? Right? I think we all have a series of those. For every guy who's ever proposed to the woman he wants to be his wife, that's a death-defying leap. If he doesn't know the answer is gonna be yes, like, sometimes you know, right? But if you don't know and you gotta pop that question, that's a death-defying leap, but you won't get that thing you're seeking if you're not willing to take that leap.
I hear you loud and clear. Loud. So, are there some daily habits that you do, some rituals that you credit for much of your success?
Yes, I'm a routine fanatic. I keep this supercomputer plugged in, charging in a room I don't sleep in. I'm not looking at it last thing before I go to bed. I'm not looking at it first thing when I wake up. I immediately make my bed. That gives me an instant win and it puts my room in a harmonious state. I immediately go down and do cardio. I listen to podcasts while I'm doing treadmill or stationary bike or whatever I'm doing that day for cardio. I come up, I make my protein shake with all of my supplements and healthy nutrients that, fuel me with energy and wellness. I read for 1 hour, which is a newer thing. I've been doing that maybe 7, 8 months now, where I always read as part of my self-development time. But I don't know, 7, 8 months ago, I said, you know what? I'm going to upgrade this. I'm going to 1 hour a day, because then it allows me to get into the deeper books, the deeper topics. Whereas if I'm only reading 15 minutes, I'm going to say, well, that book is too dense. I can't process that chapter right now. I need to, so I'll go find something easier. Whereas when I've got an hour and I've got to fill the hour minimum, then I'm really reading stuff that challenges me. So I do that. Then I do some kind of strength training throughout the day. Those are big, and then, my email box is empty every night when I leave this is a spare bedroom in my condo that I made my office. When I shut down, the phone stays here. The last email, there's no emails in my box. I have email zero every night when I'm finished. I handle things one time, I don't, so a lot of stuff like that. But yeah, so I'm a huge routine guy.
I listened to some I don't remember the podcast who it was, but it was about doing those routines, and one of the things that I'm really trying to focus on is one of the things you just mentioned, which is before you even look at the screen, you look at the sky. So even though my phone is next to my bed, because I got kids and grandkids, and once in a while they might call me in the middle of the night, whatever, because they've done that. So, but I'll put it aside and I force myself to open up the curtains, look outside, go sit out on the patio and watch those birds before I do anything. It's hard. It's a new habit that I'm practicing very hard to do. So, yeah, but it takes a while. But I totally feel so much better when I've done that instead of checking my phone right off the bat. It's like sky before screen. That's how he put it. I don't remember who it was. So what do you
Oh, that's a good philosophy.
it is, and he said the same thing you did. Then you make your bed, when you put some water cold water on your face and go do your cardio and all that. Okay, my sister and I were just talking about that the other day. I was like, "Yeah, we need to force each other to get out there and take a walk or something because there's no excuse." So, how important is downtime and rest in this process of achieving real wealth?
So much more important than most people know. I wake up every day when I finish sleeping. I don't use alarm clock unless, I've got a 6 a.m. flight because I have to make some connection somewhere or whatever. But I allow my body to tell me when it's finished sleeping. And what I've found is I need 7 to 7.5 hours a night. And yeah, you could read all these books and listen to all these grinder, hustle, work your face off podcasts. It's all bullshit. You cannot cheat nature.
I
Your body is part of nature and your body needs enough sleep. So if you think, okay, I'm going to burn the candle at both ends and I'm going to train myself on how to get by on 5 hours worth of sleep, you're not getting, you're not, the only free cheese is in the mousetrap. Okay. There is no other free cheese. So you sleep 5 hours a night. I promise you. And that's why people always, I say, everybody who knows me well says, Randy, you're the most productive human being on earth. I have never met anyone who can record 3 YouTube videos, write 2 podcasts, do his cardio, do his thing, do that, write 2 book chapters, go to a softball game, play 2 games, and in this day and get all this done. But I do that because I'm really productive and I'm effective because I eat and drink clean and I get enough sleep.
yes, I
And
agree.
like when I play softball, that's my passion, get away, take my mind off. Why I love playing softball is because I will never be thinking about what's in my email box or what's in my WhatsApp thread or what about this client this or what about this nothing. When I'm on this, I'm playing third base. These guys are playing with aluminum bats. That ball's coming at me 110 mile an hour off the bat. I can't be distracted.
Yeah,
I better be focusing
hold
on
that ball.
where that.
That's right. I
Yeah.
totally understand that. In fact, in real estate, in earlier in my career, and my son works with me, he would say, "Mom, quit answering the phone at 8 o'clock at night. There's nothing that you can do. Turn it off at 6 o'clock if you have to at 7, but there's nothing that can be accomplished after 8 o'clock. So turn off your phone." And he was totally right with that. Totally. And I totally get the softball. For me, if I want to totally veg out my brain so that I'm not thinking about work or anything, it's a boat on the river. Like a boat on the river. I will not be thinking about anything. My mind turns to mush. And I love it. I love it. It's like I don't think about anything but the beautiful weather. It's like, because 'cause I'm not jumping in for the because there's alligators there. Um, so how do you recommend people protect their money once they start making it?
I'm not an investment advisor, finance guy. Full disclosure, I'm a high school dropout, so I do not offer investment advice. I'm a prosperity guy. So the if you go to my blog at randygage.com, just click the blog. There's a post called Beat Your Burn Rate, and that's part of a series of
Yes.
posts.
That was a good blog.
Yeah, and they link back and forth. There's 3 or 4 about my philosophy of how to grow your wealth and how to, because you gotta practice leverage, you gotta escape trading hours for money, and you gotta put either it's very simple, this is not rocket science. Either you work for money or money works for you. Choose wisely, okay? Either you work for money or money works for you. Which one is it gonna be? And then if you're someone like me who would never retire because I'm an entrepreneur, entrepreneurs are artists and artists never retire, right? So even though I work and I get paid money, I immediately take that money and I put it to work for me. And it's going to be different. And what I do is going to be different for me than for your son. How old's your son?
He's 38.
Okay, so he's older
He's
than
a
I
sa
thought,
and
but
he's
anyway, he's
a
at
saver.
38,
Yeah, he's a
I'm
saver.
66, right? So the horizon in front of me is closer than the one behind me, most likely. So I'm gonna have a different tolerance for, like, what I'm gonna look to invest in, where if somebody's 20 years old, they might take a bigger chunk of their money, and they'll do it in something that might be more higher risk, but higher reward, and then as you start to develop your wealth, you're going to do stuff that's lower reward, but it's also lower risk.
Yeah. And I have to reiterate to our audience to check out that blog. It was really good. In fact, I sent that blog to my children. My son isn't, he is a saver and he's been a saver since he was in his 20s, which is great. It's like, great. It's like, okay. I think he listened to Dave Ramsey or something. I don't know.
Okay, good
Yeah.
for him.
It's like, yeah, he's a saver. And I'm like, I was super proud. So, how do you personally decide which risks are worth taking in business and in life? We talked about risk. Which ones? It's like, how do you determine which
Well,
one?
my default setting is to roll the dice. I want to live a life that's bold, daring, and imaginative. I like my life to be an adventure. I'm not into playing safe. So whether it's business or life, I'm the type who's gonna go for it. I
I love
just
kind of the cartoon that says, "I'm going out of life sliding because I did everything I could and it was an adventure." Have you ever seen that little cartoon? It's like
no,
it's
I haven't.
I'm going out sliding. I'm just like, I'm not teetotaling around. I'm giving it all I've got. My dad was a risk taker like that. It's like, yeah. So how do you recommend someone invest in themselves when money is tight?
Well, that's when you need to invest in yourself more than ever.
I tell people that's when you start if you're a business owner, that's when you market. Y
Yeah, and
yeah,
how do you market? You gotta invest in marketing.
yeah,
That's what I talked about when I said I printed that magazine, I created my demo video, I buy a company, I hired employees, I took a risk. I invested in myself. I invest in myself all the time. I do I have these consulting contracts with companies, and I have clauses in them that say, okay, when sales reach X amount, I get a $250,000 one-time bonus. They get to this amount, I get a $500,000 bonus. There's higher things where literally they got to cut me a check for $1 million, and they're happy to do it, right?
Sure.
Because
Yeah.
if they're cutting me a check for $1 million, it's because I added $100 million in revenue, and they know a big chunk of that comes down as profit to the bottom line because they've already covered their nut. So I'm betting on myself when I do deals like that because I'm not charging as much as I know I would, let's say, for the retainer fee, because I know, hey, I can get these perks. My very first Viper car, which was my dream car, I got in a consulting contract. There was a clause in there that said, hey, it was a young startup company. They were doing like $200,000 a month. And I said, hey, when you get to 2 million a month, you're going to buy me a new Viper. The CFO was like, oh, no, we can't do that. And I'm like, he said, there's legal issues, there's tax issues. I'm like, listen, I don't want to hear your personal problems. If I take this puppy to 2 million a month, send me the damn car. So, and the CEO was a smart enough guy who say, shut up, put it in the contract. And he called me when he got to 1,800,000, and he said, hey, I know we're only at 1,800,000, but got a buddy and he's got this Viper. It's owned by a Las Vegas casino owner, and he's going through a divorce, and he's got to sell some stuff, and it's a one of a kind. There's only Viper in the world like this, and I want to get it for you.
Ooh.
Like, you know,
Okay.
so, and the only reason he called is because it was black and I had said I was going to get a red one.
Oh,
And he said, I would have just surprised you with it, but I don't want to send it to you if you don't want a black one. And so, but when I thought and described the car and everything, I'm like, yes, let's do it. But that was betting on myself, right? So
that's
I'm
funny.
always willing to bet on myself.
Well, Randy, this is awesome. I love it. We're just about out of time here. I wanted to ask you if our audience wants to reach out and connect with you, get your blogs, how do they find you?
Randy Gage, scratchy throat, randygage.com. That's, kind of my Starfleet command site, and you'll see everything spins off of there.
Awesome. So I have one final question. It's my signature question I ask everybody because I'm all about connections and success through connections. Can you share a story about when you were presented an opportunity because of a connection that you had?
Yeah, and I was thinking about this because I know it's your signature question because the connection is the theme line of your whole show. And I'm the worst person in the world to answer this question because I'm not about connections, because I'm on the spectrum. I had a lot of social anxiety issues in my younger days. I wouldn't go to a networking event if my life depended on it. People say, I always fly first class so that I meet these people. I book so much business. I'm like, I fly first class because the people who pay that kind of money value their privacy like I do, and I know they won't be chewing my ear off. I don't want to talk to the person next to me in the plane, right? I don't know them. Okay. If I know them, they might be a lovely person, and, but so, but I would say this, so two things came to mind as I thought about it. One is I have a dear friend, Victoria Labaume, who I met many years ago at the National Speakers Association. She's this creative genius. She's got a book that's incredible. She just works with companies on bringing in creativity and stuff. And so she got married to a guy named Frank Oz, who created some kind of Muppet stuff or something. I'm not sure exactly. And she happened to know I'm a big Star Wars fan. So she sent me a beautiful photo of Yoda, the Jedi Master, which of course she asked Frank to, assign to me. So that, I thought that was really cool because, I just love everything Frank has done is so genius. And, I'm a total geek for Star Wars. So that's just because I knew Victoria before he ever met her, right? But probably the uh, another example of this would be, again, because I'm this social pathological introvert, whatever, but I do join organizations like National Speakers Association where I've got my tribe, people who do what I do. And then it takes away some of that stress of meeting people because we have a shared experience, right? So I joined NSA a long time ago, I think 1991 or something. So somewhere mid 90s or something, they asked me to do a presentation to the association on something that I do in my practice. So I do it, and then, afterward, people are hanging around and they're asking you questions, and this very patient guy waited to the end of the line, and he just kept asking me all these wonderful questions, really insightful questions about how I did that, and why did I do that, and what did I think of this, and I thought man, he's such a polite and charming guy, and, and he kept asking he just asked so many questions and just thought my presentation was so amazing. And then after like the fifth question, I looked at his name badge and it was Og Mendino. And so, like, there's probably half your audience who's under 35, they're going to have to Google who's Og Mendino. But for people of my demographic, for people who really are into self development, the man he was not a mere mortal. He was a god of self-development, right? And one of my all-time hero. I had read every book I have a, personally signed collector's edition of some of his works here over there in my bookcase and stuff. And I met him just because I was there, in that organization trying to provide value and then got to meet, they always say, be careful, don't meet your heroes, but that was not the case with Og. He was just, he was just a prince. He was just a prince.
That's see, that's a beautiful story. So through your connections, one thing leads to another. Just remember, it's how I what I tell people all the time. First of all, Randy, thank you so much for giving your time so generously with me today. It's like, that bucket just got filled today. I feel so good. Thank you so much. And to our listeners today, remember that success does not happen in isolation. It does happen because of the connections that we have. So keep reaching out, keep connecting. And until next week, this is Zelda with Success Through Connections. Don't forget to subscribe.